One of those essaywriter.com ideas was, is censorship necessary in art and media? This is an opinion that it has varied for me over the years, but it seems to, at its core, remain pretty consistent. When I was growing up, I did not have too much censorship around me. It's not like, oh my God, I'm seeing all kinds of gore and sexual content or anything like that. But I can say that my mom didn't have a tendency of depriving us of things. Something I do remember though is when I was very, very, very little, she was mindful of that stuff. She didn't particularly like to be in areas where profanity may be prevalent or anything like that. And if for whatever reason we consumed a piece of media that featured such a thing, she would be like, I just remember that it's not proper for you to express yourself in that manner. But for me, I don't remember having a lot of restrictions when it came to what I watched, especially when I hit my teenage years. It was a wild west for me. I could do what I wanted, look at what I wanted, listen to what I wanted. But there was a part of me that, because I was raised with a degree of properness, I wanted to maintain that as much as possible. When it comes to censorship in art or media in general, I think that when you are young, super, super young, let's say under 10, I think that you can be exposed to it and consume it, but in small doses and not by yourself. Be accompanied by someone who is willing to guide you through what you're consuming. That's something that I remember my mom doing. She wouldn't exactly always sit down from beginning to end to watch a movie because she was always busy trying to keep the house together. But occasionally, if there was something that she recognized could have the potential of having stronger themes, she would browse in and out and be like, okay, so this part right here, this is the context. And don't get confused by this or that. Don't repeat this or that. So it's nice to have someone guiding you, coaching you through it. But looking back, had I been deprived of that content, I would have been a little annoyed, because there's the part of me that simply does not bridge very well the point of when I can consider myself as having grown up and become mature versus when I was still immature, developing, and vulnerable. But I think because my mom was so involved in those things, it's really hard for me to look at childhood as my absolute most weak, vulnerable time. I just never felt that way. And it really helped me to have been exposed to things like that and have it explained to me, because by the time that we got to those topics in school that were a little more serious and severe, I took it super, super well, like a walk in the park, whereas some of my classmates were not always comfortable by that. And I'm thinking, why is it that you have to be so freaking prude? Like, there's nothing crazy going on here. And especially on the talk of physical stuff, intimacy, and things like that, I think it's something that really should be discussed. In art, I don't mind it, but I do think it's unnecessary sometimes, especially those arts and sculptures where you totally can see the genitals of like certain personas, certain personalities and stuff. Like, I don't feel like it really enhances that image. And I'm not sure I even understand what the point is. There's also a part of me that's like, I need to learn to be able to look at this comfortably because I'm fucking grown. And it's something that generally I can do when I stumble upon that on TV shows or on works of art or online as I'm scrolling through Twitter and I don't have the censorship on. Sometimes I'll see some dumbass video of someone's naked ass shaking, because that's what people like to post, especially the bot problem that Twitter has. And all I do is I continue to scroll unbothered. If I know that I'm in a place where such a thing is inappropriate, then I would make sure to not visit places like that, depending on where I'm at. I'm not going to be on Twitter while I'm at work, for example, because I know that people post trash in there, and I wouldn't want for there to be a misunderstanding. Or say in school, when I was in school, absolutely none of that would happen. And it also helped that access to those things was pretty limited. All in all, I think that censorship is not necessary. But if you are dealing with someone who may be predisposed to being mentally vulnerable, then I think you should consider not allowing someone to consume that content unsupervised. But if they're going to have someone responsible explaining things to them, then I think that's great. It's also an opportunity for you as the person who may be teaching someone or guiding someone through content like that to measure yourself. How well do you explain this? How comfortable do you feel having this conversation going? And when it comes to media like music and movies and all that, I am bothered sometimes by sex scenes only because I feel like they're unnecessary to the plot. And I really believe more in the context. Have a man and a woman walk into a room while they're kissing and have a shot in which the door is closing and then it rolls over to the next day. We all know what happened, so we don't need to actually have the visuals of them in the middle of love making. I think that's always been stupid and unnecessary, and it does bother me because me personally, y'all ain't never gonna catch me doing that type of thing. So if it's not something that I would do so openly and I would not minding an audience, then why the fuck would I consume it? I would mind if there was an audience. Censorship is something that if it's words, ideas, I think that that type of censorship shouldn't exist, because you need to have discord to have a dynamic life, for things to be possible, for us to progress in some things. But I do think that, again, you have to be responsible about the audience. And if you know that someone may not be able to handle this well or take this well, then take them under your wing. When it comes to actual visual censorship, I think there's some stuff that we really don't need to see. And naked bodies is one of them. It absolutely is unnecessary. It adds nothing to the plot. And I think that it needs to be balanced. I would rather hear cuss words and derogatory things all day than looking at naked people all day, because I feel like there's a degree of making yourself predisposed to denigration. Also, I do believe in that whole privacy thing. Like, just cover yourself up. There's just stuff that should remain personal and private for you. It's just the best thing to do. Thanks so much for tuning in. When it comes to this topic, again, because I've been someone who hasn't really experienced an overload of censorship, then to me it's normal, it's natural. I don't really find myself bothered very much. The only thing that can make me cringe a little bit is what I was describing. Unnecessary sex scenes and nudity and stuff like that. Like, I don't care for that. It does nothing to me. If it's verbal and things, I'm like, I'm a potty mouth myself. And I know that I have ideas that could be crazy and controversial. We all do. Just because they are, I don't think you should be censored for it. I think that the people who need censorship are the people who are easily offended. Those are the people who could use some growth in their lives, if you ask me. There's a part of me that wants to respect them and give them a space in which they can feel confident, comfortable, and respected for what they believe in. But there's also the part of me that's like, come on, you're an adult. At what point are you going to behave like one? You won't be able to control everything at all times, and not everyone is always going to be able to cater to you and serve you. So how about if you grow a spine, grow a tougher skin, and learn to exist when the landscape looks like that? Now, if it were in person, like someone actively doing things that make you uncomfortable, wasn't Lyndon B. Johnson the guy who randomly would like whip out his privates because allegedly it was massive and no pants could contain them comfortably for him? I don't know. I don't care. in that setting, it's a professional setting. I can expect for you to be a little uncomfortable and get yourself out of that situation. But outside of that, seriously, words and images offend you. I don't have time to be offended. I just don't.